Holmes! Holmes! Holmes!
What is it? My dear Watson, what on earth is the matter?
It's time!
Time? Time for what? And what are you doing with that wireless?
Tuning in!
Tuning in? For what?
Have you forgotten? It's time for...
Ah! Tales from the Pennybloods. Of course. Excellent. Good fellow, good fellow. And now, where's my pipe?
Before COVID and for many years, I'd been writing plays and writing lots of different things, but I was trying to enter one-act festivals, and I was writing a lot of 10-minute plays, and I'd send them out, and not only would they get rejected, but a lot of times, sometimes people wouldn't even reject you. You would send it out and you'd never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And so it got really frustrating. When COVID happened, through Stage 32, I did a Zoom show with visuals called The Pirate and the Mermaid. And that was a lot of fun. But of course, the Zoom visuals were funky and the audio was funky. But anyway, the show was presented at a fringe festival up here in California and also at the Dramatists Guild in San Francisco, all online. And so that let me know the potential for the technology. And of course, the technology changes every 15 minutes. And we've gone a long way from Zoom shows that are really funky to, I think the radio shows feel really, really polished. And then when they do have visuals, we're using AI now, which, even for our first show a year ago, the Ghost Bride, we weren't using AI. We were finding, beautiful images. And so COVID had a role to play. How did COVID affect you?
Oh, I would say very similar in that this was how I got into looking at remote filming. We made a podcast from a short film. We did a sequel that was a podcast, so audio and just visuals. And it got me thinking, it got other people thinking more and more about, there's more potential here. And the fact that it's technically so much simpler. You don't have to find a space. Everybody can record at home. You edit it together afterwards. That's where the hard work comes in. But it's quicker and easier to pull together audio than it is at virtually anything else. So the technology involved, and certainly, yes, technology had to take a leap or a couple of jumps and twirls in the air when COVID lockdown. Everything had to go remote, whether it was filming, more audio experience, and people, the audience, the listeners, became more and more used to going online. So you had a shift in the audience focus as well.
I think that's really true. I think that people got used to, in part, when they were home, they were looking for entertainment, but then the habits that they developed when COVID ended was to look for entertainment in this different way. And podcasts, audiobooks, books on tape, all that kind of stuff really, really popped, as well as people listening while they're commuting or listening from home while they're doing other stuff, gardening or walking the dog or whatever.
Yeah, because there are channels on YouTube that seriously were born of lockdown. They came into being. Again, it's so easy. It's not like you have to get in with a radio station and say, "Oh, do you have space for us?" And which reminds me, how did you come to connect with James at the radio station KCBB?
So I'm a volunteer at Modesto's historic movie theater. It's a theater that was founded in the late 30s. And they show classic films and they do concerts and stuff like that. And I do a film blog for them, and I do work for them on a volunteer basis. And through that, I met James Costello, who is the general manager of the local radio station here. We were talking, and I had some ideas. I said, "What do you think about this?" And he was willing to give it a try. And since then, we've premiered all of our shows on the radio station. It's broadcast on the air in the Central Valley, in California Central Valley, but on the web everywhere else. And we have had a good response. He's been very supportive. We use the radio studio is beautiful, and all of that. And I have to say, shout out to my engineer and mixer, Raymond Menke, who really makes all the magic come together in terms of putting the show together. Which makes me think of a question for you, Julia. Let's say you had a script in front of you. How do you go from I'm reading this script to the audio effects? I'm not thinking of the performances, but how are you thinking of like the music or effects, or what's your process?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of, I hear it in my head as I'm reading it. So it might not be the very first read because I'll be looking for the language or would that word be used at that time and so on. So I'd be editing first, like proofreading in that sense. But by the time I've read it a couple of more times and we've done the rehearsed read and then we're sort of getting into, okay, now we're recording it, I think it by then something's shifting into gear subconsciously. And I think all the time the subconscious is sort of reaching out for, oh, hang on, now that piece of music would go well here, and we need something a little bit more pastoral in this section here.
I will try her again, but if she refuses?
Then she leaves us no choice.
And you agree to my proposal?
Sadly, yes. But only if blind necessity drives us to it. For it is a fearful plan.
To us.
To marriage.
To money!
You can really spend hours just looking for that piece of music that says, yes, Act 1, Scene 10, enter Kate as the housekeeper. Yes, we have this space here. and it can take...
Mr. Flint.
Please calm yourself.
Calm myself? The secrecy, the false tales used to lure me here, and this extraordinary house, the cries frightful and earthly. Where have you brought me?
Until you end up with your own reference library of pieces that you can go back to. For example, when we came to do The Ghost Bride, I used Vivaldi's 4 seasons, and I used all of the seasons because The Ghost Bride actually covers quite a bit of time. It covers almost a year, doesn't it, in time, in the sense that we have a bit of autumn and we have spring and we have, I think, summer.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
The whole process, isn't it,
Yeah.
of the young man who goes off and then she's waiting and waiting. And so you've got lots of ready-made scenes of slightly melancholic, slightly pastoral.
Mary, is that you?
Walter. Walter. Can it be you?
What's that? Can it be? I'm so enthroned.
I'll never leave you, my love.
I know you won't, my darling. But how can we be together now?
We'll always be together. Here, wear my ring, and you'll be mine for all eternity.
Hey, what's going on over there?
Will you wear this ring and wait for me?
You know I will. Forever.
But who's there? Walter? Can that be you?
Goodbye, Mary. I love you.
Goodbye, my love.
Hey, what's happening? Where did he go? He just disappeared.
Dramatic, tempestuous. Vivaldi's got it all. So it seemed like I didn't want to sort of, and I think I sort of mixed. I added in, a few other composers, but in the main, it was the 4 seasons because it fitted what was happening time-wise in the story, as well as the emotions and the moods of the different scenes. It's one of my favorites in terms of how that all came together with the voices, the acting, and the music.
And if you don't accept my proposal, your father will. So prepare yourself to be my bride.
Over my dead body, Mr. Chesterton?
That's as may be, miss.
One of the things that I notice, and I want to say like almost like as a hallmark of what I'm seeing as your style, is that there's music that intros a scene, or music at moments where in a film there would be music we would notice. But then there's also music that runs under the dialogue, over the ambient sound effects, and the kind of music that in a movie you wouldn't necessarily notice, but you're hearing on another level. And I'm wondering how you approach that kind of music. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. I suppose a lot of it is filmic. I would say, like we're talking about doing audio, we're talking about doing radio plays as though it's a cinematic experience almost. A lot of the time in the early days when we first started things like The Ghost Bride, and then what was the next one we did? Two Oaths, and every,
Yeah.
it is partly down to you as well, because you'd come in and say, I think we could have more music in there. And so
Well, I do like
the photographs in the locket. We may still want a magnifying glass, but I'll wager there's a year on at least one of them. But before we look at them, let us see what the camera caught the other night.
With that,
I like the point you made about that we're trying in audio to create a cinema experience.
Yeah.
You know, like the music, from my point of view, and this is whether it's the music itself, whether it's the sound effects, and to some extent whether it's the narration, is to help the listener envision the show as though they were in a movie theater, so they can see it in their imagination, and then at the same time, there's other parts of the music that are noticeable. You know, so one is more emotional, one is more cognitive, almost.
Exactly. Yeah, almost like a footnote. A lot of the time, it's illustration. It's not necessarily trying to tell the listener what to listen for, what to feel. It's simply an embellishment, like you might get in a very nicely printed book with lots of images picked out in gold or something.
But it's being talked of in the village, and if you didn't hear of it from me, you'd hear of it from somebody else, most likely. This house is haunted, sir.
Yes, most edifying. Yeah. Watson?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.